The padlock on gate 7 had been cut weeks ago, maybe months, hard to tell when you're sleeping under the Route 33 overpass and days blur together like oil and puddles. I stood there at the old GM plant side entrance, the one the supervisors used to use back when this place still made Cavaliers, back when Lordstown meant jobs instead of just another rust stain on Ohio's ass. My duffel bag hung off one shoulder, everything I owned since Fallujah weighing maybe 15 pounds. The November wind cut through my Carhartt jacket. Bought it at Goodwill for $8, still had someone else's name tag on it. Dwayne. Wonder what happened to Dwayne. You coming or what, Bucky? That was Trent, already halfway through the gate. Call me Bucky because of the arm. The left one doesn't work right since the IED. Fingers curl up like I'm always holding something invisible. Trent wasn't his real name either. Nobody used real names at the camp under the bridge. Made it easier when people disappeared. Yeah. I followed him through, past the rusted guard shack where someone had spray-painted hell is empty in letters 3 feet tall. Not wrong. The factory sprawled ahead of us, 6 stories of broken windows and peeling paint. The old GM logo still visible on the main building if you squinted. November light made everything look like an old photograph. You know, the kind from the 70s that's all washed out in yellow. Made sense. This place died in the 70s, even if they kept it on life support until 2019. 3 other people from the camp were already inside. I could see them through the loading dock windows. Trent had this whole plan, see. Winter was coming, the kind of winter that kills homeless people under bridges. But the factory still had some heat in the pipes, residual warmth from God knows what industrial process. Plus it had walls, doors, rooms where you could actually sleep without worrying some trucker would run you over or some cop would roust you just for existing. This is going to be perfect, Trent was saying, that manic edge to his voice he got when he'd found something. Trent found things, usually in dumpsters, sometimes in unlocked cars, once in a Walmart shipping container. This was his biggest find yet. Nobody's been here in years. We can set up in the break rooms, use the old cafeteria for cooking. Fire department will see smoke, I said. Always raining on his parade, that's me. Bucky the killjoy. But someone had to think about the practical shit. So we cook at night, vent it through the old smokestacks. Come on, man, work with me here. Inside smelled like every abandoned building I'd ever slept in, plus something else. Something that made my nose itch. Coolant, maybe. This place made cars, so there'd been lots of fluids. Motor oil, transmission fluid, that bright green antifreeze that tastes sweet and kills you. Place was probably toxic as hell. I'd survived Fallujah though. Couple of chemicals wouldn't kill me. The others were in what used to be the main assembly floor. Huge space, ceiling lost in shadows, even with the daylight coming through busted out windows. The old conveyor belts still ran along the floor, decades of rust and debris piled on them. Someone, probably one of the scrapper crews, had already taken most of the copper wiring, but they'd left the heavy equipment. Guess there's only so much you can load in a pickup truck before the cops start asking questions. Yo, Bucky, that was Luther, waving from across the floor. Luther was in his 50s Vietnam vet, missing most of his teeth and all of his fucks to give. Next to him was Destiny and her kid, Haley. Destiny was maybe 25, looked 45, did whatever she had to do to feed the kid. Haley was 6 and hadn't spoken a word in the 3 months I'd known her. Couldn't blame her. What do you think? Luther asked when I got close. He'd already scoped out a supervisor's office on the 2nd floor. Glass windows, 1 door defensible. Good sight lines. Some habits you never lose. Think we'll freeze to death by January, I said, but it beats the bridge. That's the spirit. Luther clapped me on the shoulder. The good one, thankfully. He knew about the arm. Got something you need to see though. Down in the basement levels. What kind of something? The kind that makes this whole place make sense. Why they chained the doors. Why the county won't tear it down. Luther took me down through a stairwell that still had an old authorized personnel only sign hanging crooked on the wall. The deeper we went, the stronger that smell got. Not coolant. I knew coolant. This was something organic, something that had been dead and was now reconsidering. November 73, Luther said, playing his flashlight, a mag light he'd stolen from a cop car, didn't ask, across the walls. Someone had painted dates and names down here, memorial style. Pressure tank ruptured on the main line. Flooded the whole subfloor with coolant and hydraulic fluid. Boiling hot. Killed 8 guys before they could shut it down. Jesus. Company sealed off the whole level. Didn't even recover the bodies, just pumped out what they could, locked the doors, pretended it never happened. But people talk. Guys who work here, they said you could hear things down in the basement. Tapping on the pipes. Voices in the ventilation. Ghost stories. But my voice didn't sound convinced even to me. We reached the bottom level. The door had been forced open, recently, by the look of the fresh scratches on the frame. Luther's flashlight beam caught something on the floor. Footprints. Wet footprints, dark and oily, leading away from where we stood. Nobody's been down here, I said slowly. We just got here today. That's what I'm saying. Luther moved the beam along the trail. The prints were wrong, spacing too wide, impression too deep, like whoever made them was dragging something heavy, or had too many feet. The assembly line down here was older than the ones upstairs. This must have been the original floor from when they built the place in the 50s. The conveyor belt disappeared into a tunnel in the wall, probably connected to the parts delivery system that fed the upper floors. Except the belt was moving. Slow, jerky, metal-on-metal grinding, but definitely moving. Power's been cut for 5 years, I said. Yep. Something was on the belt. Hard to see in the flashlight beam, but a hand. Blue-gray skin stretched over bones. Fingers curled like mine, except these ones would never uncurl. The hand was attached to an arm, and the arm was attached to a body that was pulling itself along the belt with mechanical precision. Not walking, crawling, using the belt's motion to help drag itself forward. The body wore the remains of a GM uniform. Name tag still visible. Pete Sulkowski. The face was wrong. Jaw hanging loose, eyes gone, but something in the sockets glinted in the flashlight. Something metal. The skull had cracked open, and what was inside looked like coolant tanks, pistons, wiring harnesses. Like someone had tried to rebuild a person using assembly line parts. "Oh fuck," Luther whispered. "Oh fuck, oh fuck." Pete Sulkowski's corpse thing turned its head toward us. The motion was perfectly smooth, ball bearing smooth, bearing in socket smooth. The jaw clicked once, twice. Then it started crawling faster. We ran. Don't care if that makes me a coward. You see something that's been dead 50 years start moving like a transmission, trying to shift gears. You run. Luther was ahead of me, taking stairs 2 at a time despite being 20 years older. Behind us I could hear it, not footsteps, but that grinding mechanical sound like a car engine trying to turn over with no oil. We burst out on the main floor. Trent and Destiny looked up from where they'd been sorting through a pile of old tarps. "We need to leave," I said, gasping. Bad habit from Fallujah. When you panic, you forget to breathe right. Now. Right fucking now. What? We just got here. The grinding sound was getting louder. Closer. And there were other sounds now, coming from different parts of the factory. That belt scraping sound, metal dragging on concrete, that click, click, click of joints that had seized up and then somehow started moving again. What the hell is that? Destiny had Haley behind her now, the kid's face pressed into her mother's jacket. One of the old service doors, the kind that rolled up for truck deliveries, started shaking. Something was on the other side. Multiple somethings by the sound of it. The door buckled, rusted metal screaming, and I saw hands underneath. Too many hands. Some wearing wedding rings. Some wearing the cheap digital watches they used to give out for perfect attendance. The door gave way. They came through in a wave. 8 of them, maybe more, hard to count when they're all tangled together like that. Some were barely human-shaped anymore. just collections of parts held together by congealed coolant and 50 years of chemical reactions I didn't want to think about. Others looked almost normal except for the way they moved, that too smooth mechanical precision. One of them, woman, I think, hard to tell, had a steering column growing out her chest, the wool still attached, turning slowly as she walked. The office. Luther was already moving, dragging Destiny and Haley toward the stairs. Trent stood frozen, staring at the things coming toward us. I grabbed him with my good hand, hauled him backward. But they can't be. Move! We made it to the second floor office Luther had picked out. Slammed the door, shoved a desk against it. Glass windows showed us the factory floor below. The things were spreading out now, searching, looking for us. One of them stopped right below our window, tilted its head back. Its face had been replaced by a carburetor, fuel line snaking down into what used to be a throat. The carburetor opened and closed, breathing, if that's what you want to call it. "This is fucked," Trent said. He'd found his voice again, high and tight. "This is completely fucked. What are those things?" "The guys from 73, Luther said quietly. "The ones they sealed down there. The coolant must have, I don't know, preserved them? Combined with the machinery, the chemicals," he trailed off. "Wasn't like any of us had a degree in whatever unholy chemistry was happening here." I was looking at the layout, counting exits. 3 ways out of this office. Door we came through, now blocked. Window that looked down on the assembly floor, 20-foot drop, and a ventilation shaft in the ceiling that probably led to the roof access. "Maybe. We can get out through the vents," I said. "Get to the roof, find a way down the outside." "What about them?" Destiny had Haley in her lap now, the kid's eyes huge and dark. "They can't climb," I said, hoping that was true. "They moved on the ground fine, but stairs? Ladders? We go up, they can't follow." That's when the door started buckling. The desk we'd shoved against the door was sliding backward, inch by inch, metal legs screaming on the concrete floor. Through the gap, I could see them. 3 of them working together with the kind of coordination you'd see on an actual assembly line. 1 pushing, 2 pulling, perfectly synchronized. The desk wouldn't hold more than another minute. "Vaughn, now." I grabbed Haley, lifted her up toward the ceiling shaft. Kid was light, malnutrition light, probably hadn't eaten a full meal in weeks. She grabbed the edge of the vent cover and pulled herself up like she'd done it before. Maybe she had. Who knows what kind of situations Destiny had gotten them into before this. Destiny went next, then Trent. Luther was at the door, shoulder against the desk, trying to buy us time. His face was red, veins standing out on his neck. "Luther, go. I'm right behind you." The desk gave way just as I grabbed the edge of the vent. Luther threw himself backward, rolled, came up running. The things poured through the doorway. 5, 6, 7 of them, all wearing the same faded GM uniforms, all moving with that horrible mechanical smoothness. One of them had a crankshaft where its spine should be visible through the torn fabric of its shirt. It turned with a grinding sound, tracked Luther's movement with whatever senses those things used. I hauled myself into the vent, good arm burning, bad arm useless as always. Below me, Luther jumped, grabbed the edge, feet scrambling for purchase. I grabbed his wrist, good hand, thank God, and pulled. He was heavy, too heavy. My shoulder socket felt like it was tearing. One of the things grabbed Luther's ankle. "No!" He kicked, connected with what used to be a face, now just an oil pan with eye sockets. The thing didn't let go. More of them were piling up beneath the vent, reaching up with hands that had too many fingers or not enough, hands that had been crushed in presses and then somehow started working again. "Don't let go." Luther's voice was panicked now. All the Vietnam cool gone. Just an old man who'd survived one war and was about to lose another. I braced myself against the vent walls and pulled. Trent appeared beside me, grabbed Luther's other arm. Together we dragged him up, inch by inch, while those things clawed at his legs. His boot came off in one of their hands. They held it up like a trophy, turning it over and over with mechanical curiosity. We got him in, slammed the vent cover down. It wouldn't stop them for long. These things had torn through a metal door, but maybe it would slow them down. The ventilation shaft was narrow, maybe 2 feet square, insulated with asbestos that crumbled when you touched it, probably killing us with every breath. But what did it matter compared to what was behind us? We crawled forward in the dark, following the sound of destiny and Haley ahead. The shaft branched off in different directions. Left went toward the cafeteria levels, right toward the loading docks, straight toward what I hoped was roof access. Behind us, metal screeched. They were in the shaft. Faster. I couldn't see anything, just felt my way forward, bad arm dragging uselessly, good hands scraped raw on the metal seams. The shaft was getting colder. We were heading up toward the outside walls. Good. Had to be good. Something grabbed my ankle. I kicked backward, connected with something that felt like a radiator. The grip loosened. I kicked again, harder, felt something crack and break away. A hand, probably. Just a hand. The rest of it was still coming. The shaft opened up ahead. Someone had torn out a section of the wall. Probably scrappers looking for copper. We tumbled out onto what had been the factory's 3rd floor, some kind of administrative level. Cubicles stretched away in rows, still set up like people might come back to work Monday morning. Someone's coffee mug still sat on a desk, World's Best ad printed on the side, filled with decades-old mold. Where's the exit? Trent was spinning around, panicked. Where's the fucking exit? There. Luther pointed to a door marked roof access. Of course it was locked. Of course it was. The grinding sound was getting closer. They were in the walls now, in the ducts, coming from multiple directions. I could see movement in my peripheral vision, shadows that moved wrong, shapes that didn't fit the geometry of normal bodies. I tried the door. Locked solid, deadbolt from the inside. I backed up, charged it with my shoulder, the good one. Pain exploded through my collarbone, but the door didn't budge. This wasn't some cheap hollow core door. This was industrial-grade metal, designed to keep people out. Or in. Move. Luther had found a fire extinguisher in one of the cubicles. He swung it like a baseball bat, connected with the door handle. Once. Twice. 3 times. The handle bent, then broke off completely. The door swung open. Stairs led up into darkness. We took them 2 at a time. Destiny carrying Haley now, the kid's face buried in her mother's shoulder. Behind us, the things poured out of the vent shaft, spilled across the office floor like insects. Not running. They didn't seem capable of running, but moving with that relentless assembly line efficiency. One step after another. Forever. The stairs went up 3 flights, then dead-ended at another door. This one wasn't locked. It opened onto the roof, and the November wind hit us like a physical force, cold enough to make my eyes water. The factory roof was massive, 6 stories up, overlooking what used to be Lordstown's downtown. I could see the highway from here, Route 33, where I'd been sleeping a week ago. Could see the old strip mall where the Walmart used to be. Could see all the empty parking lots, the closed-down restaurants, the houses with broken windows and for sale signs so faded you could barely read them. This whole town was dead. I've been dead for years. We just hadn't noticed because we were dead too, in our own way. Now what? Trent was at the roof's edge, looking down. That's a 60-foot drop. We'll die. Fire escape. Luther was already moving along the roof's edge. All these old factories had external fire escapes. We find it, we can get down, get to the gate. The door we'd come through slammed open. They poured out like water from a broken pipe. More than I'd seen before, must have been dozens of them. All the workers who died down in the basement, all the ones they'd never recovered, never even acknowledged. 50 years of bodies and machinery and chemicals mixing together into something that shouldn't exist, but did. The one in front had been a supervisor, I think. Still wore a tie, even though the neck it was tied around was mostly gear assembly. It stopped when it saw us, tilted its head with that bearing smooth motion. The others stopped too, spread out in a line, blocking the door, blocking our escape. "They're thinking," Destiny whispered. "They're actually thinking." She was right. These things weren't just mindless monsters. They were coordinating, planning, moving with the same kind of efficiency they'd had in life, when they'd built cars on assembly lines, each person doing their part in perfect synchronization. Now, they were building something else. They started moving toward us, slow and steady. No ruse. They knew we had nowhere to go. "There!" Luther pointed to the northeast corner of the roof. I could barely see it in the fading light. November sunset comes early, and the sky was already that deep purple that means darkness is maybe 10 minutes away. But there it was, an old external fire escape, the kind they don't make anymore, all rusted iron and questionable structural integrity. We ran. Destiny had Haley on her back now, the kid clinging like a monkey. Trent was ahead of us, moving fast for a guy who'd lived on meth and convenience store burritos for the last 3 years. My bad arm hung limp, throwing off my balance, making me stumble on the roof's uneven surface. Behind us, the dead workers followed, not running, just walking. That same relentless pace, like a shift that never ends, like a production quota that has to be met no matter how many decades pass. The fire escape was worse up close. Whole sections of railing had rusted through. The landing platform swayed when Trent stepped on it, metal groaning like it was in pain, which maybe it was 50 years of Ohio, whether we'll break down anything, even industrial steel. "It won't hold all of us," I said, doing the math in my head. 5 people, maybe 700 pounds total, on a structure that looked like it might collapse under a strong sneeze. "It'll hold." Luther was already climbing down. No choice. He was right. The things were 30 feet away now, close enough that I could see details I didn't want to see, how one of them had a timing belt where its intestines should be, still turning, still keeping time. How another had spark plugs for teeth, the gaps between them sparking faintly in the dying light. How all of them had that same focused look, like we were parts on a line, and they were quality control, checking for defects. Destiny went down next, moving carefully with Haley's weight. The girl still hadn't made sound. I wonder what she was thinking, if she'd ever understand what she was seeing, or if her brain would just file it away under nightmare and move on. Kids are resilient like that. More resilient than adults, sometimes. Trent followed, then me. My good hand grabbed the railing, and I swung myself over, bad arm flopping uselessly. The platform swayed, metal screaming. Below us was a 6-story drop to the parking lot. Old parking lot, from when this place employed 3,000 people. Now it was just cracked asphalt and weeds, broken glass catching the last of the daylight. The things reached the fire escape. The first one stepped onto the platform. The structure groaned, but held. The second one followed. The third. They were coming down after us, moving with that same mechanical precision, hands gripping the railing with strength that bent metal. We were 1 floor down when the platform above us gave way. Not completely, just one corner, bolts shearing off with sounds like gunshots. The things didn't react, didn't show surprise or fear or anything human. They just adjusted, shifting their weight, continuing down. One of them fell, lost its grip when the platform tilted, and dropped 6 stories to the pavement below. It hit with a wet crunch that echoed across the empty parking lot. Then it got up. "Oh Jesus," Trent breathed. "Oh Jesus Christ." The thing's legs were bent wrong. One of them twisted completely around, but it was pulling itself upright, using a piece of rebar like a crutch, dragging itself toward the base of the fire escape. Toward us. We kept moving down. 3 floors left. 2. 1. The ground was close now, close enough that I could see details in the parking lot. Old shopping carts, used needles, a sleeping bag that might have been mine once. The things were right behind us, maybe 10 feet up, close enough that I could hear their breathing, if that's what you called it. That rhythmic hiss-click-hiss like pistons firing. We hit the ground running. Well, most of us did. My bad arm threw me off balance, and I went down hard, scraped my face on the asphalt. Tasted blood and rust. Luther hauled me up, dragged me forward. The gate's that way. He pointed toward Gate 7, where we'd come in. Maybe 200 yards across the parking lot. Might as well have been miles. The things were coming down the fire escape behind us, but more were emerging from other exits, side doors, loading docks, that main entrance where they used to have the guard shack. How many workers died in this place over the years? Not just the 73 accident. There were the ones who died of cancer from the chemicals, the ones who'd had heart attacks on the line, the ones who'd killed themselves after they got laid off and couldn't find other work. This whole place was built on dead labor. Now the dead were coming to collect. We ran across the parking lot. Destiny was ahead, Haley bouncing on her back. Trent was falling behind, out of shape, lungs probably shot from the smoking. I grabbed his arm, pulled him along. Behind us, the grinding sound was getting louder. They were gaining ground. Something tripped me. I went down again, chin hitting asphalt, bit my tongue. Blood filled my mouth. Looked back to see what I'd tripped over. A hand, just a hand, torn off at the wrist, still moving. Crawling like a spider. It grabbed my ankle. I kicked it away, scrambled to my feet. The hand kept moving, pulling itself along by its fingers. All around us, parts are moving, hands, feet, something that might have been a head. The thing that fell from the fire escape hadn't been the first. There were pieces everywhere, fragments of workers who'd been blown apart in industrial accidents, ground up in machines, torn apart by forces that should have ended them permanently. Nothing ended permanently here. Gate 7 was ahead. Just 50 yards now. 40, 30. Something slammed into me from the side, knocked me sprawling. One of the things had come out of nowhere, moved faster than I thought possible. It pinned me down, face inches from mine. Used to be a guy. I could tell from the remains of a beard, now just wire bristles crusted with coolant. Its jaw worked up and down like it was trying to remember how to speak. Then it spoke. "Help us." The voice was all wrong. Came from the chest, not the throat. Sounded like it was coming through a speaker, through a radio, through some kind of mechanical translation. But the words were clear enough. "Help us still here." I stared into what had been its eyes. Something moved in the sockets, cameras maybe, or sensors. Something that could see me, recognize me as alive, as human, as something they used to be. "Please." Luther appeared above us, brought the fire extinguisher down on the thing's skull. It cracked like a transmission case, leaked black fluid. The thing spasmed once, then went still. The cameras in its eye sockets kept moving though, tracking, searching. "Come on." Luther hauled me up again. We staggered toward the gate. We made it through. Destiny was already there, Haley clutching her neck. Trent was bent over, throwing up on the asphalt outside the fence. I looked back through the chain link. They'd stopped at the gate. All of them, maybe 30 or 40 dead workers, standing in a line just inside the fence. Not trying to climb it, not trying to break through, just standing there, watching us with their camera eyes and headlight eyes and whatever else they use for vision. Why aren't they following? Trent wiped his mouth, voice shaking. They can't. Luther was staring at the fence, at the ground on either side. Look at the threshold. They sealed this place for a reason. Whatever happened in 73, whatever chemical process made those things, it's contained. They can't cross the property line. They talked. I said quietly. One of them talked to me, asked for help. "They're not people anymore," Luther said, but he didn't sound convinced. We stood there for a long time, watching the dead workers watch us. The sun was fully set now, darkness rolling in from the east. The factory behind them was just a silhouette, broken windows like dead eyes. Finally, we turned away, started walking back toward Route 33, toward the overpass, toward whatever life we'd have now that we knew what was in there. Behind us, I heard it, faint, carried on the November wind. The sound of the assembly line starting up again. Belt moving, machinery turning, production resuming. They had work to do. They always did. Death was no excuse for missing shift. We made it maybe half a mile before Destiny collapsed. Not fell, collapsed. 1 second she was walking, the next she was down, Haley rolling off her back and landing hard on the shoulder of Route 33. The kid screamed. First sound I'd heard from her, this high-pitched wail that made my teeth hurt. Destiny. Trent was there first, rolling her over. Her eyes were open but unfocused, staring at the sky. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, like she'd just run a marathon, which I guess she had. She's going into shock, Luther said. He had his fingers on her neck, checking her pulse. Probably been running on adrenaline for the last hour. Now that we're safe, her body's shutting down. Safe was a strong word. We were on a highway shoulder at night. November cold seeping through our clothes, a mile from a factory full of mechanical corpses. But compared to what we just escaped, I guess it counted. I looked back toward the plant. Couldn't see much in the dark, just the outline of the main building against the slightly less dark sky, and something that might have been lights in the windows. Except the plant had no power. The county had cut it 5 years ago. We need to get her to a hospital, Destiny said. No, wait, that was Trent. Still getting used to having 5 people in the group, instead of just me and whoever I could bum a cigarette from. She needs a doctor. Hospital's in Youngstown, Luther said. 15 miles. We got no car, no phone, no way to get there except walking. She won't make it. There's a gas and go about 2 miles up, I said. I knew every convenience store, every fast food place, every warm doorway between here and Youngstown. Had to when you lived outside. They got a phone. We call 911, get an ambulance. And tell them what? Luther's face was invisible in the dark, just a shadow with a voice. Tell them we were squatting in a condemned factory and got chased out by dead guys who turn into machines. They'll think we're on meth. Don't care what they think. She needs help. Haley was still crying, that same high-pitched wail. I picked her up, awkward with one good arm, but she was so small it almost didn't matter, and tried to shush her. Didn't work. Kid had been quiet for 3 months, and now she'd found her voice at the worst possible time. Can you walk? Trent was trying to get Destiny to sit up. She managed it, barely, face pale in the scattered light from the highway. No cars had passed in the 10 minutes we'd been standing here. This stretch of Route 33 was mostly abandoned. Used to feed the factory back when the factory fed everything. Now it was just another dead road in a dead town. I can walk. Destiny's voice was weak but determined. She'd been determined every day I'd known her. Determined to keep Haley fed. Determined to keep them both alive. Determined to find something better, even when better kept receding like a mirage. Just give me a minute. We didn't have a minute. The lights I'd seen in the factory were moving now. Not the steady glow of electricity, but something that flickered and shifted like headlights. Lots of headlights, all turning on at once, all pointed toward the gate. They're coming, I said. They can't cross the fence. You said so yourself. I said they stopped at the fence. Didn't say they couldn't cross it. The lights were reaching the gate now. I could hear it from here, that grinding sound, metal on metal, that assembly line rhythm. But there was something else too. An engine sound. Multiple engine sounds. Like someone was starting up cars in the parking lot, except there were no cars in the parking lot. We'd seen it empty when we ran across. The gate exploded outward. Not blown up, that wasn't the right word. More like it was ripped apart from the inside, chain link shredding, posts bending, the whole structure just coming apart like it was made of aluminum foil. And through the gap came. I still don't have the right words for it. Imagine a car, except it's made of people, or people made of cars. Bodies welded to chassis, limbs replaced by axles, faces pressed into grills. The whole thing moving with that horrible coordinated motion, wheels that had been legs, pistons that had been arms, all of it grinding forward with purpose. It wasn't just one. There were 3 of them. 4, 5. Each one a different configuration, like the factory had kept making cars and just used whatever materials were available, which I guess included the workers. "Run," Luther said quietly. Then louder, "Run." We ran. Destiny stumbled, caught herself, kept moving. Trent was ahead, his earlier fatigue apparently forgotten in the face of car people hybrids. Haley was clutching my neck so hard I could barely breathe, but I didn't care. Just focused on putting one foot in front of the other, bad arm flopping, good arm holding the kid, lungs burning in the November cold. Behind us, the things were gaining. They were faster than when they'd been just bodies. The wheels helped. They rolled along Route 33 with the sound of traffic, except traffic never sounded that wrong. That wet, grinding, organic, mechanical sound that made you want to cover your ears and pretend you'd never heard it. The gas and go appeared ahead, its sign flickering in that way all gas station signs do at night. I could see someone moving inside. Clerk probably doing the night shift because someone had to, and night shift paid an extra $1 an hour. The parking lot had 2 cars and a semi-truck. Driver probably sleeping in the cab. We burst through the door like we were being chased by demons, which I guess we were in a way. What the fuck? The clerk was a kid, maybe 19, with gauges in his ears and a Slipknot t-shirt. He took one look at us, bloody, filthy, wild-eyed, with a screaming child, and reached for something under the counter. Gun, probably. Don't. I held up my good hand. We need to call 911. Now. What's going on? Are you hurt? Is the kid? Call 911. The kid fumbled for the phone. Outside, I could see the things rolling into the parking lot. 3 of them, moving between the parked cars with that horrible grinding sound. The semi-truck's alarm started going off, headlights flashing. The driver emerged from the cab, looked around confused, then saw what was coming toward him. He ran. Smart man. 911, what's your emergency? The voice came through the phone speaker, tinny and distant. The clerk couldn't get the words out. How do you explain this? How do you tell someone that the dead factory workers are coming for you? That they've become machines, that 50 years of industrial accidents have created something that shouldn't exist? I grabbed the phone. Gas and go on Route 33, mile marker 47. We got multiple casualties, people in shock, and I looked outside. One of the things was right up against the window now, pressing what used to be a face against the glass. Its eyes were headlights, high beams shining directly at me. And we got a situation. Send everyone. Police, ambulance, fire department. Everyone. Sir, can you describe the situation? The window exploded inward. Not from the thing hitting it. It just stood there, staring with its headlight eyes. The glass shattered from something else, something that had been thrown from behind. A piece of rebar bent into a hook shape, trailing what looked like intestines made of fuel line. The thing climbed through the broken window with the smooth efficiency of an assembly robot. Its lower half with a rolling chassis, wheels spinning slowly even though it wasn't moving forward. Its upper half was a worker's torso, arms replaced by hydraulic lifts, head cocked at an angle that would have broken a living neck. Back door. Luther was already moving, grabbing Destiny, half carrying her toward the rear of the store. Trent followed, then me with Haley. The clerk just stood there, staring at the thing, phone hanging from his hand, 911 operator's voice still squawking questions. Kid, move, I shouted. He didn't move. The thing reached him in 3 smooth motions: extend, grasp, lift. The hydraulic arms closed around the clerk's torso with a hiss of compressed air. He screamed, finally, that same high-pitched sound Haley had made. Then the arms compressed. I didn't look, just ran through the back door, into the storage area, past pallets of energy drinks and chip boxes, and all the mundane shit that makes up a gas station's inventory. The back exit was propped open with a brick, fire code violation, probably, but right now it was salvation. We stumbled out into the employee parking area behind the gas and go. Two cars there. One looked like it hadn't run in years, flat tires and missing windows. The other was a Honda Civic, maybe 10 years old, covered in bumper stickers. Coexist. My other car is a broom. One of those stick figure family things, except someone had scraped off most of the figures. Just a single stick person left. The clerk's car had been the clerk's car. Keys, Luther said. We need keys. They were probably still in the clerk's pocket. The clerk, who was currently being compressed by a hydraulic corpse machine inside the gas and go. I looked back at the store. Through the windows, I could see more of them arriving. 4, 5, 6. The parking lot was full of them now, all converging on this little island of light and normality. Check the wheel well, Destiny said. She was leaning against the Honda, face gray. People hide spare keys there. Magnetic box. Trent dropped to his knees, felt along the underside of the car. Got it. The back door of the gas and go opened. One of them rolled through. This one was almost all car, just a skeletal framework with a worker's spine stretched along what had been the drive shaft. The skull was mounted where the engine block should be, jaw working up and down with that grinding rhythm. Trent fumbled the keys, dropped them, grabbed them again. Got the door open. Everyone in. We piled into the Honda. It was a tight fit. 5 people in a car built for 5 people, except one of them was me with my bad arm taking up extra space. And one was a kid who was still crying, and one was Destiny, who looked like she might pass out any second. Luther got behind the wheel. Turned out he'd driven in Vietnam, some kind of transport thing, and turned the key. The engine turned over. Died. Turned over again. Died. Come on. Come on. Luther pumped the gas. The Honda was old. Probably had 100,000 miles on it. Probably hadn't been serviced in years. The clerk had been working night shift at a gas and go. He wasn't making enough money to keep his car maintained. The things were surrounding the Honda now. 6 of them, maybe more. I couldn't count anymore. They pressed against the windows, against the hood, against the doors. Not trying to break in, just standing there, watching us with their headlight eyes and camera eyes and whatever else they used. Waiting. The engine caught. Luther threw it in reverse, gunned it. The Honda jerked backward, tires squealing. One of the things went under the wheels. I felt the bump, heard the crunch. The car shuddered, but kept moving. Luther spun the wheel, shifted into drive, and we shot forward toward Route 33. The things followed. Not fast enough to catch us. The Honda could do 60 even in its decrepit state, and they topped out at maybe 30, but fast enough that we couldn't stop. In the rearview mirror, I could see them rolling down the highway behind us, their headlight eyes creating a weird procession, like a funeral cortege that never ends. Where are we going? Trent asked. Good question. Youngstown was 15 miles east. Cleveland was 60 miles north. Pittsburgh was 70 miles south. All of them were dying Rust Belt cities. All of them probably had their own factories full of dead workers. All of them probably had their own versions of what we just escaped. Away, I said. Just away. Haley had stopped crying. She was staring out the back window at the things chasing us, face pressed against the glass, breath fogging it up. Her expression was blank, unreadable. Maybe she understood what she was seeing. Maybe her 6-year-old brain had already filed it under nightmare and moved on. Or maybe she was just thinking what I was thinking. We weren't getting away. Not really. Those things had crossed the fence line, left the factory property, broken the containment that had held them for 50 years. They were out now. Free. And if the Lordstown plant had them, what about the Ford plant in Cleveland? The steel mills in Youngstown? The rubber factories in Akron? How many dead workers were out there? Wait and wake up? How many industrial accidents had happened over the decades? Bodies sealed away, forgotten, left to marinate in chemicals and coolant and whatever else kills you slowly in a factory. Luther was driving fast, pushing the Honda to its limits. Behind us, the things were falling back but not stopping. Never stopping. They had all the time in the world. They were already dead. What was a few more miles? There's a state police barracks in Youngstown, Luther said. We get there, tell them what's happening. They won't believe us, I said. They'll have to. Look at us. Look at what we just. They'll think we're crazy, or on drugs, or both. I dealt with cops enough to know how this played out. Homeless people don't get believed. We get moved along, locked up if we're lucky, beaten up if we're not. So what do? I didn't have an answer. Just watched the things in the rearview mirror getting smaller but never disappearing. Watched Haley watching them, her eyes reflecting their headlight glow. Watched Destiny starting to nod off, her breathing steadier now, but still too fast. Watched Trent chewing his nails, that nervous habit he had, making his fingers bleed. We'd escaped the factory, but the factory had escaped too. We made it to Youngstown just as the sun was coming up. November sunrise in Ohio looks like the end of the world, all gray and orange, like the sky can't decide between light and dark, so it settles for both. The state police barracks was on Market Street, a squat brick building with too many antennas and not enough windows. Luther pulled into the parking lot, killed the engine. We sat there for a minute, nobody moving, nobody speaking. The things hadn't followed us this far, or if they had, we couldn't see them anymore. But I could still hear them in my head. That grinding sound, that assembly line rhythm, that voice asking for help. What do we tell them? Trent finally asked. The truth, Luther said, but he didn't sound convinced. We went inside. The duty officer was a woman in her 40s, looked like she'd been working double shift for 20 years and had stopped caring somewhere around year 5. She looked up from her paperwork when we walked in. 5 people, bloody, filthy, wild-eyed, with a 6-year-old kid who hadn't said a word since we'd gotten in the car. Help you folks. We need a report. Luther paused. How do you finish that sentence? There's a situation. At the old GM plant in Lordstown. People are dead. Things are moving. Coming out of the plant. The officer's expression didn't change. You been drinking? No. We were at the plant, trying to stay warm. And these things came out of the basement. Dead workers from a '73 accident. They've turned into machines. Or machines turned into them. I don't know how to explain it. You're telling me there's zombies at the GM plant? Not zombies. Something else. Something worse. The officer sighed, picked up her phone. Yeah, I got 5 individuals here claiming there's some kind of situation at the Lordstown plant. Yeah, that's what I thought too. She looked at us. Sit down. Someone will be with you shortly. We sat, waited. Through the window, I could see the sun climbing higher, burning off the morning fog. Traffic was picking up on Market Street. People heading to work, to school, to whatever normal lives they still had. Nobody looked worried. Nobody acted like the world had just cracked open and something horrible had crawled out. Maybe it hadn't. Maybe this was just Lordstown's problem. One factory, one accident, one contained outbreak of industrial horror. The police would send someone to check it out, wouldn't find anything, would chalk it up to homeless people having a collective hallucination. Life would go on. Except I kept thinking about what Luther had said, about all the other factories, all the other dead workers, all those bodies sealed away in basements and walls and forgotten corners, marinating in chemicals for decades. The Lordstown plant wasn't special. It was just the first one we'd seen wake up. A detective arrived an hour later. Young guy, late 20s, with a beard that looked like he was trying too hard. Detective Shapiro, his badge said. He interviewed us one at a time in a small room with a tape recorder and a mirror that was obviously one-way glass. When it was my turn, I told him everything. The camp under the bridge, Trent's plan to squat in the factory, finding Luther in the basement, the things on the conveyor belt, the chase through the factory, the gas and go clerk getting crushed, all of it. Shapiro wrote it down, asked clarifying questions, didn't react, didn't judge, just documented. When I finished, he closed his notebook. That's quite a story, he said. It's not a story. It happened. I'm sure you believe that. He stood up. We're going to send a unit out to the plant to check it out. In the meantime, You folks should get cleaned up. There's a shelter on 5th Street, Good Shepherd Mission. They'll give you a place to shower, some clean clothes, maybe a hot meal. You think we're crazy. I think you had a traumatic experience. Maybe you saw something at that plant, squatters fighting over territory, drug deal gone bad. Your brain filled in the gaps with, he gestured vaguely, with what you described. There's a dead kid at the gas and go on Route 33. That's not my brain filling in gaps. We'll check on that too. He opened the door. Interview over. I walked out, past Luther and Trent and Destiny with Haley asleep in her lap. Their faces told me their interviews had gone the same way. The duty officer gave us a card with the shelter's address. Told us to check in with them in a few days after they'd investigated. Told us to stay out of abandoned buildings. Told us to take care of ourselves. We walked out into the November morning. The sun was fully up now, weak and distant. Traffic was heavy on Market Street. Nobody looked at us. Why would they? Just more homeless people, more human debris from the Rust Belt's collapse. We'd been here before the factory woke up. We'd be here after. They're not going to find anything, Trent said quietly. Maybe they will, Luther said, but he didn't sound like he believed it. We walked toward 5th Street. The Good Shepherd Mission was in an old church, stained glass windows and stone facade, the kind of building that used to mean something. Now it just meant free coffee and a place to sleep if you got there early enough. Halfway there, Destiny collapsed again. This time she didn't get up. The hospital admitted her immediately. Extreme exhaustion, malnutrition, possible internal injuries from the run through the factory. They kept Haley with her. Kid wouldn't leave her mom's side anyway. Luther, Trent, and I sat in the waiting room, drinking bad coffee from a machine that charged $2 for 8 ounces of brown water. She gonna be okay? Trent asked. Yeah, Luther said. She's tough. We sat there for 3 hours, then 4. Hospital time moves different, stretches out, becomes meaningless. Could have been days for all I knew. My bad arm was aching, phantom pains from muscles that didn't work anymore. Sometimes I swore I could still feel my fingers, the ones that wouldn't uncurl. Fallujah had taken them without actually taking them. Factory took those workers the same way, killed them but left them still moving, still working, still serving the line. My phone buzzed, except I didn't have a phone. Hadn't had one in 2 years, ever since I pawned my last one for gas money that I used to buy meth that I used to forget about. It buzzed again, not my pocket, Trent's. He pulled it out, old Android, screen cracked, barely functional. Looked at it, went pale. What? Luther asked. Trent turned the phone around. News alert. Local gas station destroyed in apparent explosion. 1 dead, multiple injuries. They're covering it up, I said quietly. Or they actually think it was an explosion, Luther said. Gas station, old equipment, could have been a leak. You believe that? He didn't answer. Another buzz. Different phone. Luther's this time. He had one of those flip phones from 2005, indestructible Nokia thing. He checked it. His face went hard. What? I asked, even though I already knew. State police found the factory empty. No vodius. No evidence of any disturbance. They're calling us in for psychiatric evaluation. Psychiatric evaluation. That's cop speak for, we think you're crazy and possibly dangerous. They'd hold us for 72 hours, maybe longer. Pump us full of antipsychotics. Keep us locked up while the things from the factory. We need to go back, I said. Are you insane? Trent stood up, coffee spilling from his cup. You want to go back there? To that place? Someone has to. I was standing too now, bad arm hanging useless, good hand clenched into a fist. Those things are out there. They're free, and nobody believes us. So either we prove it or what? We die trying? We get killed by corpse machines, so we can say told you so to a bunch of cops who don't care. People are going to die anyway. That clerk died. How many more before someone believes us? That's not our problem. Then whose problem is it? Trent didn't have an answer. Neither did Luther. We stood there in the hospital waiting room. 3 homeless guys arguing about whether to fight an impossible fight or just let the world burn. The TV on the wall was showing local news. Morning broadcast, perky anchor with perfect teeth. She was talking about a traffic accident on I-80. Then something about a missing person in Youngstown. Then, in other news, several abandoned factories in the Youngstown, Warren area have been condemned by the county following concerns about structural integrity and hazardous materials. The buildings will be demolished starting next month. The screen showed footage. The old GM plant in Lordstown, a Ford plant in Youngstown, the steel mills on the Mahoning River. All of them empty, all of them sealed, all of them probably full of the same thing we'd found. They're going to tear them down, Luther said quietly. Destroy the evidence before anyone can investigate. Or destroy the things inside before they get out, I said. They already got out. We saw them. Maybe they went back. Maybe they can't stay away too long. Maybe they're tied to the factory somehow. Need to return to, I don't know, recharge or whatever. It was thin. Everything was thin. We were just 3 guys with no resources, no credibility, no way to stop what was coming. The system would grind us up the same way it ground up everyone else, through poverty, through neglect, through willful ignorance of anything that complicated the narrative of progress and growth, and everything going back to normal. Except normal was dead. Normal died in 1973, or maybe in 2008, or maybe it never existed at all. We'd just been too busy working to notice. I'm going back, I said. Tonight. See if they're there. Document it somehow. Get proof. With what camera? Trent asked. What phone? We got nothing. Then I'll describe it. Write it down. Tell people until someone listens. They won't listen. They never listen. He was probably right. But I was going anyway. Because that thing in the factory had asked for help. Because the clerk at the gas and go deserved more than being written off as a gas explosion. Because someone had to stand up and say this isn't normal, this isn't okay, this needs to stop. Even if that someone was just a homeless vet with one bad arm and nothing left to lose. Luther stood. I'll go with you. Luther. Not letting you go alone. Someone needs to watch your back. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Ain't that what we do? Veterans? Watch each other's backs. Trent looked at both of us like we'd lost our minds. Maybe we had, but he stood up too. I'm not going back in that building, but I'll drive. Get you there and back. He held up his cracked phone, and I'll call every news station in Ohio if you get me proof. It wasn't much of a plan, wasn't even a good plan, but it was something, and something was better than nothing, better than just waiting for the system to grind us down one more time. We left the hospital. Destiny would be okay. They'd keep her a few days, make sure Haley was safe, connect them with social services that might actually help for once. She didn't need to be part of this. Nobody needed to be part of this. But we were anyway. The Honda was still in a hospital parking lot. We climbed in, Trent behind the wheel again. He started the engine. It caught on the first try this time, like even the car knew we had a job to do. We drove west, back toward Lordstown, back toward the factory, back toward the thing that shouldn't exist, but did, the thing that would keep existing until someone stopped it. The November sky was getting dark again, always getting dark in November. The sun barely bothered coming up most days. As we passed mile marker 47, I looked for the gas and go. It was gone, not destroyed, gone. The lot was empty, just cracked asphalt and a few concrete pads where the gas pumps used to be, like it had never existed at all. They're cleaning up, Luther said quietly, making it look like nothing happened. Who's that? Does it matter? We kept driving. The factory appeared ahead, dark shape against the darker sky. No lights in the windows now. No movement in the parking lot. Just another dead building in a dying town. We pulled up to gate 7. The chain link was still torn open from when the things had broken through. Trent killed the engine, and we sat there in the silence, listening. Nothing. No grinding. No mechanical breathing. No assembly line rhythm. Just wind through broken windows and the distant sound of traffic on Route 33 and my own heartbeat loud in my ears. Maybe they're gone, Trent said. Maybe they left, headed somewhere else. Or maybe they're waiting, I said. I opened the car door, stepped out into the November cold. Luther got out too, holding that same fire extinguisher he'd used as a weapon before. Trent stayed in the car, engine off, ready to start again if we came running. We walked through Gate 7, into the parking lot, toward the loading dock entrance. Each step felt like walking into Fallujah again, that same sick certainty that something was about to go very wrong. But also that same stubborn determination. You don't survive a war by being smart. You survive by being too stupid to quit. The loading dock door was open. We went inside. The factory floor was empty. No bodies. No machinery corpses. No evidence of anything except decades of decay. The conveyor belt sat silent and still. The old equipment gathered dust. It looked exactly like an abandoned factory should look. I don't understand, Luther said. They were here. We saw them. They're still here, I said quietly. Listen. He did. And underneath the wind, underneath the settling noises of an old building, there it was, that rhythmic sound. His click hiss, pistons firing, assembly line running. Coming from below. We found the basement stairs. Went down, flashlight beams cutting through the dark. The smell hit us first. That organic mechanical stench, coolant and rot and metal shavings. Then the sound getting louder. Then we saw them. They were back on the line. All of them, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, standing at their stations, doing their jobs, building something, body parts and car parts, flesh and metal, all coming together on that endless conveyor belt, building more of themselves, building an army. The one in the supervisor's tie turned its head toward us. The jaw worked up and down, grinding out words. Shift is eternal. The belt kept moving. The workers kept working. The factory kept producing because that's what factories do. They don't stop. They can't stop. Even death isn't an excuse for missing your quota. Luther and I looked at each other. We'd come for proof. We'd come to document, to expose, to save people. But you can't save people from a system that's been eating them alive for decades. You can only witness it, bear testimony, and maybe, if you're lucky, survive long enough to tell someone who'll listen. We backed away slowly, up the stairs, through the factory floor, out into the parking lot, into the Honda where Trent was waiting, eyes wide with questions we couldn't answer. Drive, I said. He drove. Behind us, the factory kept producing. It would produce forever, long after Lordstown died, long after Ohio died, long after everything that made this place once mean something had crumbled to rust and ruin. The workers would remain. The line would continue. The shift would never end. Because that's what we built this country on. Labor that never stops. Workers who can't rest. A system so efficient it keeps running even after everyone inside it is dead. We drove east, toward Cleveland, toward Detroit, toward every other Rust Belt city full of abandoned factories and forgotten workers. Toward everywhere that used to make things, used to mean something, used to employ the kind of people who built America with their hands and their backs and their lives. The dead factories were waking up, all of them, and their workers were coming back to finish the shifts they'd started 50 years ago. The assembly line was eternal, and we'd all be on it eventually, whether we wanted to be or not.